Thanks for finding time on this busy Saturday morning to join us. So our GenWise Adda this time is on play and learning and play. It has almost become a four-letter word, that represents the opposite of productive work. And so we thought there is a lot of merit in sort of delving into that a little bit. And who better to do that than somebody like Valentina?
I want to begin by saying that, just yesterday somebody was asking me, I said, oh, I have a session, and they said, on what? And I said, on play. And they said, on what? And I said, play. So then they said, play what? I said, play, just play. And they said, play what? Play for, play what, play which? And I said, no, just play. So I think this is a word which has really not got its due. I mean, of course, when I was a child, it was a different world, and play was something which we didn't even need to spell out. It was all around us. And the state of playfulness was always, we were always surrounded by it, ensconced by it. And we could, it was like a big, huge jar of honey, golden honey. And you could dip into it anytime, all the time, as frequently as you wanted. And now its definition has shrunk in people's mind till it has come to be thought of as opposite to work, opposite. So play is to work as pain is to pleasure. So work is deified, it's put on a pedestal, it's looked up to, it's appreciated, it's respected, it's taken seriously. And play lies there in the mud, muddied, and being trampled on. And really, I mean, we need to ask ourselves, why? Why? First of all, I think, Sowmya, we really need to establish why it is important to play.
How did play come to shape the way you look at children, learning, education, storytelling?
Okay, me personally, because I think I grew up with this in this happy generation of benign neglect, where we didn't have parents breathing down our necks to tell us to keep studying and then dissecting our test marks. I mean, my parents didn't know what marks I was getting in the test, and that was just fine. If there was something I was finding difficult, I could always ask my teacher. It was all a very easy flowing, relaxed kind of thing. And it also helped that I grew up on a 70-acre campus, which was a safe, secure area for kids my age, my friends, older friends, younger friends, to just run around and play in. So there were ample old trees, lots of mango and guava trees to climb, lots of lychee trees to raid, and just lots and lots of space to run around in and create our own games. So, playing, making mud cakes, doing this, doing that, improvising and, innovating, creating our own games, all of that was just a matter of daily routine. And I didn't know it then. So it was only later on when I looked back as an adult, I realized the value of it. Because I grew up still not realizing, what that had meant. And long hours of reading books, creating stories, creating plays, enacting them. And now this is very, very important for all children. And there is a huge lack of this in today's world, is understanding adults. And when I say understanding, I don't mean adults who've done a degree in child psychology or something. I mean adults who understand the learning process. And if you would just drop your guard as an adult, you would be able to understand it very easily. But because people don't do that, they just don't understand how children learn. So they focus on all the dry, boring things in a child's life. And they're never really able to see the world from a child's perspective, which is, it's so kaleidoscopic. It's like, you have the rainbow, but they can only see one color of the rainbow. So I often tell parents that, apart from studies and food, eat this, don't eat this, and do this and don't do this. So apart from those 4 topics, what you talk to your child about, that is real conversation. Otherwise, so I mean, play just doesn't feature in a parent-child relationship, except for structured play now, which is like, okay, I'll take you for tennis coaching and I'll take you. It has its place. Team games have their place, but this sense of playfulness. So I think let me take people back to something that we've all done at some point of time or the other, and multiple times actually, interacting with a little baby. Now here is this bundle. He can't speak. He can't, he can't talk to you in a language yet, and he can't walk. But there he is, and he gets all your attention. You bring a baby into a room, and everybody's attention is focused on that. And not just attention. There would be a lot of, unplanned, unstructured, unique kind of behavior which comes into the adults, and they would be cooing and getting the baby, all kinds of things, nodding their heads and smiling and completely lost in it. I mean, if you were to take a short video of people interacting with a kid without any sounds, you'd realize what adults do. And that's because they connect with the child in themselves. So there is that bit of playfulness within themselves. But somewhere along the way, when we start growing older, we get conditioned to, sort of let it drain away. And it's like a plant, you don't water it, it dries up. But it's there. The seed is there. So I think the important thing is also to bring out its relevance in an adult's life. Because at most we'll see play as something which children should indulge in, children do indulge in, and parents should rein it in. Stop playing, go study, stop playing, enough playing, and never really combining the play and study thing. So in my case, it wasn't so. Play was a very healthy part of my growing up. Stories was a very healthy part of my growing up. And stories, I used to read both Hindi and English storybooks. And that was my favorite gift. Anybody asked me, what should I get for you? And I'd say, Kahani ki kitab. And so there was that. And apart from that, as a storyteller, like that's one of the things I do. And I realized that all my career choices have been about stories, one way or the other, whether it was scripting or directing or editing or advertising or telling stories or, So I remember back when I was a child, anybody would come over and I would, a few people who were close to the family, and I would tell them, Kahani sunaiye. Huh? And typically an adult would say, I don't know any stories, and or I can't remember any stories, just to get away from it. But I wouldn't let them. So I would say, okay, if you don't know any, then I'll tell you a story. And they would patiently sit and listen. I think that is something that an adult needs to do now around children. When you're around children, you have to be patient, and not patient in a
dreary way.
Pathetic, dreary, Nirupa Roy, sad mother, Hindi movie kind of way. But as an engaged listener. Engaged listener.
Right. Yeah. So I think as you said, when we say play, typically people have, we sort of have a quick association with play with very young children. And when with them, we don't have any, any questions about whether they should be playing or not. Once they get into a schooling age, which is of course getting younger and younger, then we sort of wonder if we should just let them play all the time, because initially all the play that children do is all physical, full body play. It's like the whole body is out there and they're like moving, and hand and brain are linked through this play. What they want to do and what they can do come together in play initially. And then when they are a little bit older, then I think we begin to think that play is sort of something that you must do in your spare time. It is not seen as foundational for a child's learning. So I mean, why do you think we make that transition? Because as you said, when there is a baby, we do that. But when our child is 8 or 9, it takes a little more to sort of retain that, in some sense, faith in the child's playfulness. We don't have that faith anymore.
So, see, one of the things is that we take life too seriously. We take all other aspects of life very, very seriously when it's not needed, and we don't take play seriously. So, like feeding the baby is very important. Nappy change is very important. And I'm starting right there, but you know how it changes, but still, things like that. But play isn't. And somehow, because it is, completely ignored, slowly what happens is that a child's world shrinks and studies become important, school admissions become important, getting good grades becomes important. And because teachers and parents are both focused on that, this child who had all the possibility, now think of this baby, I'm going back to the baby or a child. If you've seen a child at play, three things that really define his playfulness or his behavior is: one, he's completely in the moment,
Yes.
completely. He is not thinking about who he is, or when he's playing, he's completely in the moment. And then when he's gurgling or laughing, or there is this sense of complete surrender. you know he's not thinking about, oh my god, what is this mom going to give me for my next, when is my next feed, nothing. There's complete surrender and completely in the moment and uninhibited expression. So these are the three things that define play at that age. And as a child gets older, these get affected. Because one, parents' instructions come in. And of course, because they love their child. Okay, don't do this. You'll get hurt. Don't do that. You might get hurt. Don't go here. Don't touch that. All the don't start, which of course will happen. Of course, as a parent, you don't want your child getting hurt. But there is an overdose of that. And of course, uninhibited expression also takes a beating, because there is accepted behavior, there is behavior which is not accepted. But it becomes too strict. So a child is often not even able to express what he or she is feeling, because the child learns very early in life what adults want me to say. So that expression also shrinks. And the third thing is living in the moment, of course, gets impacted, because you're constantly thinking about future or past. You are doing something and you're worried that your mother will come and scold you, or you are worried that your father will tell you to finish your homework first. So there is always this, link to the present or the future. Very rarely does he, future and the past, very rarely does he get moments where he's completely in the moment and the adults are not disturbing him. If little children are at play, you see them and they will be very happy playing by themselves if the adults let them be. So this letting them be is important.
Yeah. I'd like to hear your thoughts on another aspect of this, which is that there are at least, there are many different ways of classifying play. Surely, but one axis which I found interesting was there is such a thing as free play. There is such a thing as guided play, and there is such a thing as learning through play. So for example, free play would be your idyllic life on your campus that you grew up. A guided play would be like, if you're playing hopscotch, or if you're playing, so where there are some boundaries, and there might be an adult or there might not be an adult, but there are some rules when you're playing your Ludo, when you're playing, that sort of some constrained boundary within which there is freedom. And then the third kind is learning through play, which is a much more sort of applied definition. And I think, okay, we'll talk about it, but that is more like facilitating learning actively through play in a classroom, either during the younger years or even a little bit when they're a little bit older. So I think each of them has something very different and definite to contribute to the making of a child. Can you talk about that, Val?
So I think, yes, but the thing is that learning happens all the time. So whether it's free play or guided play, or of course the classroom kind of more structured learning is happening all the time. So free play, is when the child is creating his own structures of learning. So he's exploring his environment, creating his own learning, responding and reacting to the world around him. And that is the kind of learning that we should actually, if you want to do like a slightly guided thing, you should introduce things in that environment rather than say, okay, stop doing this and now you're going to do this. So I think free play gets short shrift again. I'm going to keep coming back to free play because we have enough about the learning in the classroom, structured play and guided play, of course, yes. But, somewhere I think even when adults try to guide, they end up teaching, So,
preaching, I think,
yeah, preaching and teaching and focusing on the what is being learned aspect rather than leaving the learning, in the child's hand. So, I mean, you've done Montessori, so you know about, creating an environment and letting the child discover. And so,
So I read this book recently called Obliquity by an economist, May. And so that book I thought was extremely relevant to this because he's talking of how when you want to achieve something meaningful in life, it makes most sense to go at it in an oblique way, not directly. If you want your child to, for example, internalize the ability to learn, to assess, to find resources, to tap into resources, to figure out what he knows, to assess, to push the buttons, whatever. The way to get at it is obliquely, not directly, which is what I think play does. I think it comes at all of these things and many more, but comes at it from an angle. It doesn't come at it, doesn't hit at it head on.
Absolutely.
And I think that has a far more staying power within our system. We internalize it in a happy frame of mind. Now, I found it interesting that you were talking of play as the opposite of work, but so in fact, I was reading and it said the opposite of play is not really work, it is depression. Please comment on that, Val. Yeah.
I would completely agree with that because if you are not playing, there is a part of you, and I would, there's a part of you which is getting depressed. And you may not even be aware of it because, what another thing which we adults end up doing is we get very caught up in our roles. And our roles distract us. They distract us from our own real selves, which is where the play comes and connects us to our real self. But our roles, playing those roles distracts us. And we are so focused on playing our roles that we are not paying attention to our own self. So that is another big reason that one should indulge in play at any and every age of life, because if you don't connect with yourself, depression is bound to happen. You may not notice it. You may notice it partially, but it will be there. So, I think who said this? Stuart, who said, I remember reading this and I would agree. If you're not playing, then definitely there is a part of you which is depressed.
Right. And I think there are two things, separating, we're sort of slightly talking about that overlap very much, which is this play during childhood. And free play or board game play or play in a classroom type thing, and the state of playfulness as an adult. So I think there's a strong correlation there. It seems to me that somebody like you who's grown up in this environment which was extremely accommodative and encouraging of this play, then I think that is conducive to a playful sort of outlook. But what do we other adults do when we don't have that, afternoons on the lychee tree to look back to?
So you don't need to have that, because I think a lot of times adults think that they are not able to do something or bring something new in their life because A, they don't have the time. Two, they have too many other things to do. Of course, lack of time and lack of space. And they are too stressed out when playing the other roles. But I'm glad you talked about the state of playfulness, because that's what I was going to mention. That can happen anytime and every time, for instance, you can just, so I'm just giving an example. Last year when I was still living in Delhi, or 2 years ago, I had a party. Okay. Sowmya, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, maybe Sowmya is frozen, but carry on.
Yeah. So, I mean, now I think a party is something which adults do find time to, right? I mean, they never say that, oh, I don't have time to party. I mean, okay, maybe in the last year they may have, but still. But then I'm just talking about if you were to infuse what happens in a party, you invite friends over and you have a good meal, you have some nice drinks, and you have, this. So, I mean, I'm just giving an example of infusing a little playfulness in this. So, what I did was I invited people over. I had about 14 people over, but I tried to not invite people who knew each other. Typically what we do
Okay.
is we invite either this group of friends or that group of friends, and it's the same friends and the same conversation. But I invited these people who mostly didn't know each other. And
Hmm.
then they came and they had to pick out chits, and there was a lot of other games. They had to pick out some chits, and they were paired off with somebody they didn't know, and then they were given these recipe cards, and they had to cook part of the stuff that was being served. So nothing, I didn't have to spend extra time with it or something. It was just a party which was organized with a little bit of playfulness. And people loved it because they said, and two people told me this. They said, when we meet the same people, we have the same conversations. And this was very refreshing because met somebody completely different. And I was in a space where I had to have a conversation with them. And there was this doing something together. So part of what Sowmya, you were saying, this, physically doing something together, like how children indulge in play. This can be done. I mean, why do we stop doing it? Why do we stop playing games together? And I'm not just talking about board games and something, just creating games. So to give you an example, we have a wood apple tree in the garden, a bale tree, and the bale fruit is like a big fruit with a hard uh, outer skin, so it's a pretty hard fruit. And they are falling. A lot of raw ones are falling right now. They're not ripe enough to eat. But there were all these bales scattered around, and I said, okay, what can be done with them? And I have two young nieces here. So we created a game. We got 6, 7 of them, and then we were, aiming like how you used to play Pittu, but with a difference. So it was a new game that was created, and we were doing this. So what I'm saying is this playfulness can come in anytime, anytime. All you need to actually do is, um, change the glasses with which you look at the world. That's all. You change the glasses and your perception changes. And when your perception changes, then you start seeing things differently. Then something like for instance, this in my hand is a bowl, right, Soumya? Can you see it?
Yes, it's a green bowl. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that is what it is at a very physical level. But what else can it be? What else can it be?
I will let the audience participate in that.
Yes,
What
please. I
else
would
can
love
it
to
be,
hear
people?
some answers.
It can be a helmet for the alien.
Ah, really? And maybe I'm an alien, Okay, yes, it can be an alien. Great, Kuhu. What else can it be? And again, adults, don't get caught up in right or wrong answers. Here I am wearing this, doing this, feeling happy, looking silly and feeling happy. So silly is good. This is not a test. And right away, I'm giving all the viewers 100 on 100 right away. You have topped your exam with distinction, passed with distinction. Now that all of that
It
can,
can be a shell of a tortoise.
it can be a shell of a tortoise. Yes, yes. What else can it be?
It can be a boat to cross the river.
It can be a boat to cross the river. Yes.
It can be an umbrella.
It can be an umbrella. Yes. Okay. Right. What else?
It can be the lost hump of a camel.
Lost hump of a camel. Why not? A camel who likes to color it green, or a green camel, or a camel made of what is this? Chlorophyll. Now I invite you to, change your thinking a little bit. Because one of the things that prevents us from playing is when we adults get caught up in our thinking human mind. So now I want you to think like an ant. So what can this be for an ant?
The sky.
Yeah, it can be the sky. Absolutely. What else?
A big mountain.
A big mountain to climb and get
It
over.
can be the planet Earth itself.
It can be the planet Earth for an ant. Okay, but why Earth? Because, I mean, we live on Earth, and if it's an ant, then can we come up with a new name for this planet for ants?
It can be a forest for an ant. A green color.
Forest for an ant, yeah, okay. But how
Turn
about
it
coming up
around.
for a planet for ants? Now I'm sadly going down that road also. So,
Okay.
can we name a planet for ants?
Hmm.
I think you can name it anything. The ants won't mind. They won't come and bite you. They won't protest against you.
I'm thinking of
Maybe the planet of the ants is called Gajubla.
could
And
be,
I'm
yeah.
glad I only had to say it once, because if I repeat it, it'll come out some other way. And maybe it's a name that keeps changing, because sometimes it's Gajapahashapu, and sometimes it's Kukulapatapa, and sometimes it's Gigigugawawa. What I'm saying is there are no wrong answers, and there is no extra equipment needed for play. Okay, one more chance. What can this be for a giant?
A half-eaten apple, maybe.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
A broken nail.
A broken nail. Yeah, sure. Or an eyeball also.
Oh my God, yes.
Half of an eyeball. See, what I'm asking you here today, go back home and ask children these questions. You know, take a bowl in your house, just pick up any bowl and ask children. And you'll be amazed.
Actually, surprisingly, children come up with better answers than
Yes,
adults.
Yes,
definitely.
Surreal, yes. And why do you think that is?
Because,
They're not
as you
conditioned,
said,
ma'am.
they don't have any inhibitions. They don't have any, they are not like conditioned like us.
They're not conditioned. Imagination is free for them. They can just
Absolutely.
imagine.
Well, you know what, Kuku, the great news is that it's free for us also, except that we don't take it, you know.
We don't take
It's like
it.
a
Yes.
big sign saying sale, 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 free, 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 100% off. And we don't just reach out and grab it.
The other reason is we have been conditioned to always give the right answer.
Very true, Mr. Kanakagiri. And that is, I think, the worst thing that teaching has can do is to be conditioned to give the right answer.
In fact, when you told me, right, like what it could be, like you feel so like inadequate, like your mind is not able to think beyond that bowl, because like you have been trained and appreciated and like encouraged, congratulated for always telling the bowl and getting good marks.
Absolutely. You've put it so well. Thank you so much. Appreciated and congratulated. Oh, okay. I have to share a tiny story here. Thank you, Mr. Kanakagiri. That's very, very valuable. Thank you for putting it in words. Appreciated and congratulated. Why are we appreciating and congratulating children for conditioned responses all the time? So, okay, going back to the baby. Now, the baby is maybe 1 to walk, 2 to talk. Okay, maybe the baby is getting close to 2 years old, and everybody is looking at the baby and saying, oh, okay, say dada. And one day the baby looks up and says, dada. And there is rejoicing and celebration. And they say, oh, say it again, say it for mama, say it for papa, say it. Okay, the baby obliges, because he sees jubilation all around. And he says, oh my God, I'm doing something and everybody looks happy. Huh? And I'm being encouraged to do it. And everybody loves it, right? So from then on, every word the baby speaks is met with rejoicing and encouragement and appreciation and congratulations. And, you know, then what happens? That same baby gets through some nursery entrance exam. And the parents also get through, which is also important these days. And he goes to school. He's very excited. He's got a new bag, tiffin box, everything, and he goes to school. And over there, he's told to only speak when asked, and then also give the correct answer, you know. So the teacher has an answer in mind and the child has to guess or know that answer and give that answer, and then she'll say, very good, sit down. And if the child gives another answer, then she'll say, you've not prepared. Prepared for what? Prepared for a silly test. But maybe he's showing a new way of looking at something. You know, so we have to encourage these kind of responses. So the other day, my 6-year-old niece and I were eating some salad together, and she's very fond of salad. And this had about 6-7 ingredients of different color. And she said, "Oh my goodness, I love this. This is like eating a rainbow." And I said, "Fantastic." An adult can never come up with that line. So original. It's like eating a rainbow. And these are the kind of responses we must encourage because they come from a spirit of play. She can see a rainbow in a salad bowl. We can't. So, yeah.
May I add one point?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to add to that rainbow and salad, right? Like I have 2 kids doing this work from home. One is 7 years, one is 5 years. I was just teaching them this waxing and waning moon, like Pratipada, Dvitiya and all, because they could actually see every day and all that. And when you prepare this salad with radish, right, like a fully circular one, like I could see that because they also learned these tithis like Pratipada, Dvitiya and all. So they could see like they could eat little bit, okay, now it's like Pratipada, they could eat little more is Dvitiya. Like you yourself feel amazed, like how, like you told me, like from the bowl you could see, actually like they could relate anything with that what is learned. Other thing I observed and also I'm doing for last 2-3 months is consciously I'm giving all the waste products for them to play. Okay, not any plant toys from the shop. And it is actually like amazing learning for me. What all creative things they come out with that particular available waste, like it could be carton box, it could be thermocol, it could be boxes, like completely waste, like nothing planned in our mind. So just to add to your point, sorry, Valentina.
Again, Mr. Kanakagiri, please don't apologize. Again, a very important point you have raised. Giving children something to explore where it is not planned in your mind already. I think that is the crux of, being playful. Where it is not planned in the mind already. Anything else is planned in the mind already, whether it's learning tennis or whether it's, studying biology. There are these goals. There are these, okay, you have to score this much in a test. The next chapter is this, whatever. But starting with something which is not already in the mind. And isn't that what led to all kinds of inventions, all the discoveries?
I think there's a fine mix here because I think very small children also, they really appreciate structure. They appreciate iteration, they appreciate repetition, the same song, the same set of movements, the same words, the same thing you go again and again. That's why every language has these little things you do with small children, which just repeat over and over with some actions or with some movements. So they love it. So I think there is some place definitely for some things that are in some sense predictable. The child sees that coming and he likes it. But I think there's all but that cannot be the be all and end all. We very much need to allow the child to have a space and time where it is not guided, where he's free to play in that free play mode. Like for example, I remember when my daughter was 5, I think. So we used to do the snakes and ladders, and like a diligent mother, I would always encourage playing snakes and ladders because there's numbers. So the child learning mathematics, numbers, and so I just sort of go for it all the time. So we sit there, we play snakes and ladders, and when we start, she would say, so we would take the dice, roll, go, hop, 1, 2, 3, and then she would go 1, 2. Then we just play the regular game for a bit, and then she'd say, "Amma, we don't need the dice. I'll tell you what number I'll throw and I'll move that much." So she'll say 4 and go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll say 6, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll say 8. So within 3 jumps, we'll be right on the top. It could be possible, but not 3 jumps, but fewer jumps. Then the next level game, she says, "Why number? I'll just jump on the board. Chuck, 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 chuck. And I'll go chuck, chuck, chuck." So it's a completely crazy, not snake ladder game at all. At all. But I think it is important in some sense to allow children as much freedom freedom to move in their minds and bodies when the stakes are still low. Because when they are 15 and when they're 20, if they want to do whatever they want and in a playful way in the world out there with their capability, the stakes are not low. But I think when they are really small, we need to remember the stakes are still very low. Val, yeah, I remember we talked a bit about this.
Yeah.
So I think that is that letting them do their thing when the stakes are low, I think builds a certain foundation of a certain sense of joy, one thing, and second thing, a certain sense of, oh, I can handle this. It's okay. I know, it's a certain sense of comfort along with that joy. Yes, Vishnu.
Sowmya?
I feel compelled to make some comments after what Sowmya said. So I have been just started reading this book called The Gardener and the Carpenter by a developmental psychologist, Alison Gopnik. And when Sowmya talks about this exploration when the stakes are low, apparently animals with a longer childhood seem to be more intelligent. It's not like scientifically proven out there, but there's a lot of correlation. So for example, some of you on YouTube might have some years ago seen these ravens, these birds in New Zealand or somewhere, where they're very good with tool use. So these have pretty long childhoods, right? Because the parent is going to protect you at that time. The stakes are low. You can fool around, do this, do that. So yes, so I see a very clear sort of linkage between. So I think there are two kinds of learning which happen. One kind of learning which is very open, which is why I think Valentina has been talking about free play, that you've not yet decided what exactly to focus on.
Right.
Everything in your field of experience is game, and you try to process all of this, and a lot of new things, new ideas come out of that. Maybe the other kind of learning where you have to repeat your multiplication table so many times, or you have to keep hitting that same note on the guitar, that also has its value. But the thing is, you cannot sacrifice one at the altar of other, in my opinion. And unfortunately, because adults and the adult world values efficiency, we've sort of thrown away, I think, play somewhere.
Okay, now I'm dying to jump in. May I?
Please,
because both of you have said some wonderful things, and I have to respond to it in my sense of
Valentina ma'am, excuse me.
Yes.
Just before you jump into this, you were talking about toys and imagination with your board. I just had a point to ask you, if I can just pitch in a question.
Please.
You see, when we were young, we used to play with, the soil used to be the rice, the leaves used to be the chapati, the pebbles used to be dal, something like that. We used to imagine. A lot of imagination came into being. Over the years, when my kids grew up, we have pizzas and omelets and everything in the kitchen set. There's very little left to imagination for the child. And they're very beautiful artifacts to say again. So my take is, which one do you consider is better? Because in my age, I could imagine anything from anything. My imagination had no boundaries. But here, aren't we restricting the imagination of the child? Because when I'm giving a real replica of a pizza or an omelette or a fruit, which can be even cut into pieces, sliced and joined again. So what is your take on this?
So I would say, don't buy that set for your child. I would say give them the first, little things around in the house. Give him a spoon or give him, start from there. And better than that would be to get one of those, sets of blocks or something where he still has to create something. So I'm just going to quickly list, since you brought this up, some of the things, like you talked about imagination. And people always, this is for parents who are still wondering why play. It's all very nice, free play and everything, but why? So I'm just going to list that, your imagination, creativity, confidence, innovativeness, independence, communication skills, critical thinking, collaboration, all of these skills get developed when you play. The unstructured play that we are talking about. And so this is the importance of, and there is no class for that. This is not part of the school curriculum, all these things that I just listed. You cannot send your child for tuitions to learn these things, but you can acquire them, and you can enhance the learning in them by just plain play, simple play. So
Yeah, I think it's even more
coming
than
back
that.
to Sowmya, one second before
Yeah, go ahead.
You were saying something?
No, go ahead. I can wait.
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about the snakes and ladder game.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. All of us have played snakes and ladders as a child, you know. Now, a typical parent who is not in touch with her or his sense of play would say, what are you doing? You are not teaching the child the right way to play this game.
Right.
Okay. And he or she may go on to say, look, the child has to know that, you know, ladders take you up, snakes bring you down. That is the rule of the game. That is how it should be played. So, okay. But I want to stress out what you are doing. So when you and your daughter, and again, I have to congratulate you that your daughter took the lead and you went along with her, which is what very few parents do. You know, they like to take the lead and want the child to come along. Whereas sometimes if they would just let the child lead, the child would lead them into unexplored, exciting, interesting, and engaging territory. But more on that later. So when she said, okay, do away with rolling the dice, she was doing away with competing, you know. So what are you playing snakes and ladders for normally? To compete. Okay, I won the game.
Right.
You lose the game. This need to compete was gone. Then, okay, any number is fine, you know. The need to win was gone. And parents might say, oh, but you know, that's not good. You must always want to win. You must have ambition. Sure. But if you do away with this, if you can also do this to give up the need to win in something like you said, low stakes in a snakes and ladder game, then you are more likely to be a good team player. You know? And then what is left? No competition, no winning. So some parent might say, then why play snakes and ladder? It's a waste of time. You're not playing the game right. You're not playing it properly. It's a waste of time. No, because you derive joy from it. And joy doesn't come in a bottle. It can't be bought at stores. And here you and your daughter have got this moment of bonding and joy, experiencing joy together. I think that is brilliant. And that is what is going to be an antidote to that depression that we talked about. These kind of things, these kind of experiences which are noted, enjoyed in awareness and not, you know, ignored just because there is a certain way of doing things.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. And then Vishnu was talking about, you know, the longer childhood and you know, having everything open and then focusing on certain things which you need to work on. Like you said something about, you know, okay, there are certain things you need to focus and work on, like your whatever skills and yeah. But
multiplication
a
tables, let's say.
large part of your mind should also be open, because like Deepak Chopra says in his 7 spiritual laws of success, the field of pure potentiality. How do you connect with that if you're going to always have your mind chock-a-block with your own agenda, with one, you know, your agenda is with just one human mind. But when you keep part of that mind open, so again, I'm going to use this bowl to say, when you don't keep it like this structured, but keep it open to the universe, then some magical things will flow into it automatically. And I've experienced that. So that's why I'm saying it. You won't have planned it, and something will come your way, and something exciting and something joyful, and it'll just come and fall in your lap, and you say, oh, hello, this is nice. This is wonderful. So you have to have some of that open, because you can't structure everything. And this part of your mind, keeping it open, will help the focused learning part of your mind tremendously. It will keep the focused learning less stressful. The other thing you said was the guitar learning, yet that, you have to practice your guitar. I'm glad you brought this up because, when we come to musical instrument, learning a musical instrument, you play the instrument. You don't strum or beat or blow. You play. You learn to play. Isn't it beautiful? You learn to play to master an instrument. And I love this, these two words juxtaposed, play and master. Now there again is another link. You see realized masters, and they're in
very
a
playful.
constant state of playfulness. They are not stressed about anything. And you see them interacting with a child, and you'll see they are as childlike as the child himself. That's because they have mastered this playfulness. This is a part of them.
So I just want to comment on that quickly. So the best musicians are both technically perfect as well as very playful. But you will sometimes come across musicians who are technically so good, but the feeling is gone. Yeah. The playfulness, the leela is gone. And but you could also be very playful, but if you make too many mistakes, then it's not good. So somewhere I think there has to be a balance. Yeah.
I agree. And I see that guitar hanging behind you, and I'm not going to make any comments which are going to go against. Definitely, playfulness has its, it can't replace long hours of practice and the technical finesse that comes with it. But playfulness has its place, like you said. And then you used another word which I really like is leela. Now, leela is something which is like, up there. At least, for Hindus, at least they don't have any reason not to play. Okay? Because there is Leela up there. You have Ram Leela and Krishna Leela. Leela, Leela, Leela. It's being, thrown at you, the word. Play, play, play. And yet, we'd rather fight about Ram and Krishna than play. So focus on the Leela. I mean, the whole cosmos is, one way of looking at it is that it's just divine play. And when you get into this playfulness, then nothing stresses you out. One more thing I want to say, that when we were talking about the bowl and somebody says, I think Mr. Kanakagiri said that we couldn't see the possibilities beyond the green bowl. So now stretching that argument further, what happens is that it's not just restricted to objects. If we are not playful and have opened our minds, we don't see possibilities in people. We see them just as they appear to us. So do remember that. And we see them like that, and we brand them and tag them like that without seeing the possibilities. And especially for teachers and parents, it's on anybody who interacts with children, it is very, very important. It's absolutely essential to see the possibilities in your child. Because when you see it, he or she will see it. And if you keep your level lower and blinkers on, then he or she will also grow like that this is who I am.
Correct. I think, in fact, I was listening to this TED Talk by Dr. Stuart Brown, who has this setup called National Institute of Play in the US. And so that TED Talk is it's pretty powerful. So in fact, he talks of one particular thing there, which struck me very hard. So he was talking of this experiment, I think it was in Stanford, I'm not sure, in which he says these experiments are on rats. Rats are not human beings for sure, but they have the same neurotransmitters. So one learns from their behavior. So he says you take a control group of rats and you take another group of rats, and rats, as they grow, they have a short period when they are juvenile, when they are playful. So they squeak and they wrestle, and so there are very well defined markers of their play, and it's a short period during their development. So you take a control group and you take another group and you allow one to play, and the other you don't allow them to play. Now he doesn't, in that brief TED Talk, he doesn't say how they are not allowed to play. I don't know that. So one group is allowed to play, one group is not. Fine, and then they grow up. And then when you present them with a collar dipped in, which is dipped in cat odor, which they are supposed to have reflexes to run away from, they both run away. The control group also goes away, and the other group also goes away and hides. Now comes the interesting and thought-provoking part, which is a bit morbid, which is that what happens after this is the group that was allowed to play, after a while of going and hiding and inside and saving themselves from this danger, they actually do come out and sort of explore a little bit here and there and here and there and try to get back to their lives, and they proceed with things, and they check out this and check out this corner and make sure they sort of get on with things, and they come for their food and play and everything. The other group, which was not allowed to play, does not experiment, does not push, and they don't come out even to eat, they die. So in fact, he talks of how play, he says he's not really extrapolating this to people, but perhaps play even has a biological place in our existence, just like dreams or sleep does. Because this was quite a powerful metaphor for something scary. So that talk I found quite interesting, which says play is more than just fun. It is something much more than that.
I think that she also mentions that, play is, some characteristics of play, among which was some which I really liked was purposelessness.
Right.
If there is a purpose that you are going to play to teach, doesn't work. Like your snakes and ladder game proves amply, purposelessness. Then there is this sense of freedom from time.
Right.
Because when you're completely engaged in pure play, you lose sense of time. And how often are we really able to do that? Except when we are working or something, that's a different thing. But this losing your sense, and I think that is probably what comes in the way of adults staying away from play. Because they don't like to lose control. So losing sense of time and losing or dropping their roles, Very often kids would want to play and the mother or father says, I don't have the time. No, I'm busy just now. I'm busy. But that's also because they're avoiding playing because, they don't want to be drawn into something which they don't have control over and they can't lead in, And all they've got to say is, yes, okay, I'm ready to play. What should we play? And that'll open a whole different...
I think Vishnu has shared something by Thoreau Walden, which is one of his favorite pieces of work I happen to know. So he says, most men, even in this comparatively free country, through mere ignorance and mistake, are so occupied with the facetious cares and superfluously coarse labors of life that its finer fruits cannot be plucked by them. Their fingers from excessive toil are too clumsy and tremble too much for that. Actually, the laboring man has not leisure for a true integrity day by day. He cannot afford to sustain the manliest relations to men. His labor would be depreciated in the market. He has no time to be anything but a machine. How can he remember well his ignorance, which his growth requires, who has so often to use his knowledge? Right. To say that I don't know, I am checking out, I'm trying, I'm pushing, I'm experimenting, I think it requires a lighter, a playful state of mind.
Yes.
Which is the other end of the certainty and the
And I think this, I don't know, I'm just playing, I'm just experimenting are things which are not acceptable to teachers and parents. Whereas they are great steps to real learning, I just wanted to share some anecdote because you're talking about adults and playfulness. So
go ahead. I think you share it and then maybe we can look at winding up.
My
Val,
father
please.
is, he taught physics for the physics teacher. And I remember that there was a conference going on campus and there was this Britisher visiting and it was the season of lychees and Dehradun lychees are, Dehradun lychees are famous. And he had lychees for the first time. This I'm talking about way back in early 70s or something. And he loved them. He said, oh my goodness, what a wonderful fruit. And then the concluding day came and there was a ceremony, whatever. And now in the sense of playfulness, it was Dad's idea. It was also the season of jackfruit, So they got this jackfruit, a slightly, jackfruits can be any shape, but this one was a slightly rounder shape. They got such a big, and they painted it red. And at the concluding ceremony, they handed it to him very solemnly and said, this is a giant lychee. And he said, oh my goodness, I have the small ones. You mean you really have to eat? He said, yes. So, when you are not worried about how you will look, I think that is also another thing. Adults are very particular about perceptions.
Judged by others.
When you don't care. See, if you see behind me, you see the window, right? And you see the window frame. Now, when we came here, lockdown happened and everything, and I couldn't get a curtain rod. And what I realized to my delight, that I had these old calendars, So I just stuck these papers. And now I don't want to take them off because they're nice. And somebody at home said, my goodness, you're going to take off that paper. It looks so bad. I said, no, I like it. I think it's a very creative use of paper and I really like it. So when you are playful, when in a sense of playfulness, you don't worry about what impression you're creating, So I had these pelmets, curtain pelmets, and we got rods, we removed the pelmets. So they were so then I just turned them upside down, fixed them to the walls, and I had bookshelves which didn't take up any floor space. So, when you're playful, you can get around to doing all these kind of fun things.
Yeah, like you demonstrated literally, you wear a different set of glasses and you see things with different.
Yeah, exactly. And like talking of that, now here is an earring. I lost the pair. It's a very cute favorite earring of mine. But that doesn't mean I have to deprive myself from wearing it. It's okay to wear, different earrings. Who says? I used to, for a number of years, I used to be very fond of wearing Kolhapuri chappals, I had them in all colors. And I would often mix and match, so one purple, one green, one yellow and red. And I loved it. And children were the first ones to notice. And I remember a couple of times some adults said, oh, we thought you had done it by mistake, so we pretended not to see. So that's the difference between, talking of footwear, just one little thing. My father, for an entire day, when he was teaching in the Doon School, for an entire day, he decided to do this experiment. He wore one black shoe and one brown shoe. And then he went, attended classes, did everything else. And he said, I wanted to see how observant people are. So, as an adult, you can do a number of things.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Kanakiri, did you have something to say? If not, we can.
No, I think.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, Valentina, maybe you just want to share a couple of things about your. So Val is hosting a course with GenWise on some games that she has decided, and we have the list up there on chat. So go ahead. Maybe you can speak for a minute or two about the games, Val, and then we can
so
close.
These games, again, I know these days organic is a much touted word and it's looked at with respect. So these games are actually organically developed, really so, because lockdown happened and there were two nieces of mine also in an adjoining house. And their online classes were going to start. And they said, oh, school starting. And they were not very happy about it. And then I said, oh, well, we can have fun school. And they said, what do you mean fun school? Another school? We don't want another school. I said, no, fun school is focus on the fun. And they got so excited. And they took it so seriously that we would spend afternoons creating and playing games. And it was a wonderful learning opportunity for me too. And the thing was, all three of us, so there was a 12-year-old, a 6-year-old, and me, 50 plus. We all had to be at the same level. That is something that sometimes doesn't happen at home, So we had to drop all roles. We were all at the same level playing a game. And everybody had to obey the same rule. And everybody's ideas were welcome, equally welcome. So we came up with a whole bunch of games, which turned out to be very useful, not just to occupy those long summer days last year, but I realized the cognitive processes that were in place, the learning that was happening, all kinds of, the imagination, how it opened up. And, there was nothing that we couldn't create a game out of. And these games were not played. So it wasn't that as an adult, I was bored and I was just humoring the kids. No, I was equally engrossed and I equally enjoyed it. And I came away having learned something. So then I decided to put these games down, write them down because they were just so good. And I realized that kids who are doing online classes and all, and there was online fatigue. But I mean, offline, everybody was at home and people were working from home. So there were 2 or 3 generations of people at home, and there was no going out at that time. These were brilliant because they were meant for people of all ages. People who are inside the home didn't require any extra money or effort or contraptions or equipment to play, and did wonderful things for the development of the mind. So that was basically it.
Yeah, thanks. Well, yeah. So I think with that, we will sort of stop formally.